This video is the general overview of the strategy of how to make the 2x3 inverted wedge part. There's going to be some new elements to learn in terms of how to do an extruded cut to be offset from a surface, which is going to allow you to make this feature. There's going to be some linear sketch patterns that's going to make your life easier. And let's show how that looks on this part here. What I've done is I've rolled back. This is going to be the part. Now notice, forward. Your units are millimeter gram seconds. And if I roll the model back to this point, I've started with this base extrusion from the right plane, or excuse me, from the front plane is how I started the sketch. The sketch underlying dimensions are here, which would be showing up. You'd have to look through the drawing a little bit more carefully to find the specific dimensions, like there would be one there, the 9.60 dimension, the 24, okay, and then the depth is 16 millimeters. That 8 millimeter dimension right there is important. But this is the sketch that's used to make that feature. Extruded 16 millimeters deep. That's how that would go. Your next feature is going to be an Extruded Boss, which the circular shapes, you've done that before. Putting the fillet on. Similarly, a linear pattern to make the second feature using only one direction, using this edge. The instant spacing is going to be 2 instances spaced 2 millimeters apart, or excuse me, 8 millimeters apart. Extruding that boss and that fillet. The next feature that you would make is going to be the one that we'll go in depth here and take a look at. You're going to make this feature as an extruded cut from this top face right here is where you would make your sketch. The sketch is going to look like this. Wrong sketch. This extruded cut is going to be a rectangular shape with these dimensions. I just made the rectangle here. I dimensioned 8 millimeters from this edge to that edge, 1.6 millimeters from that edge to that edge, 0.8 of a millimeter from there to there, and similarly here. Now, when you exit this sketch, the thing to note now when you do the depth of the cut, you're going to do this pull down menu that's going to be offset from surface. What you are going to select is this surface down here with a distance of 0.8 millimeters for the offset. And when you do that, that's going to make the extruded cut have a slanted feature face parallel or offset from this face underneath here. So that's one new thing that you're going to do. After making that feature, I recommend the cut that's going to be made down here on the opposite side. Using this face as the sketch plane. The sketch is going to be a rectangular shape with these dimensions, 1.6 millimeters long, 1.6 millimeters from the edge over there, 1.6 millimeters from this edge to there, and spaced around. And its depth of cut, is going to be 1.6 millimeters deep. Rectangular shape. Now, this circular feature here, its boss extrusion, it's going to be a sketch from the bottom face of that cut. It's going to be 1.6 millimeters small circle concentric to a larger 2.4 millimeter diameter, spaced 8 millimeters from the edge down and 4 millimeters from the edge over. 2 concentric circles. And then the very last features are going to be these circular bosses, which are extrusions. The important thing to note, we're going to be using a new thing here is the sketch. You could draw each individual circular shape pattern here, and these are 2 concentric circles. The outermost diameter is going to be 4.79 millimeters. That's kind of a slight change here. So they just need to be slightly smaller than the 4.8. There would be an error message if you make it 4.8, but 4.79 millimeters. The innermost dimension of the circle is 3.2 millimeters. Now, you could draw and space out the circles concentric each time if you like, or you could make this first set of pattern of concentric circles in this position. And notice that they are spaced 8 millimeters from the center of this feature over. But if you were to use a linear sketch pattern, you would select, say, this edge is the X direction axis. You would space these 8 millimeters apart. 2 instances. Y axis would be that direction using this, say, line or edge as a reference. Let's select that. You would set then 8 millimeters, and the entities to pattern you would need to select as those features there, okay, as the circular shapes. The number of instances would be 2. So I'm not going to do that here, but it would be 8 millimeter spacing, 8 millimeter spacing, instances of 2 in both of those, and you would end up, if you hit the green check mark, not going to do that, you would end up with a feature pattern of 4 of those shapes, which will save you time. Okay. Now, to extrude these out, the important thing to note, you needed to sketch those features on the topmost face right here. That would be the sketch plane that you would use for those circular shapes. To make the actual boss extrusion, what you're going to use now are 2 directions. Direction 1 is going to be blind coming upwards, this 1.6 millimeter direction. So for direction 1, you would select blind. You would make sure that it's coming in the upward direction here. I'm just going to make these longer for a second so you can see that would be 3.6 millimeters tall, but you want to make that only 1.6 millimeters tall. Okay. The second direction that you're going to make this move would be downward. And instead of doing what you've done before, we would do up to surface. You would select this option, and then you would select this slanted face right here. And that's going to make those features extrude down up to that surface all the way down. So up to surface is going to be the new thing you would use there. And that's how you can make that feature. At that point you would be done. You want to name it appropriately. 2x3 inverted wedge, and save that to your Google Drive.